Today we are going to look at the parabola. Whenever you need to answer a certain section in your exam paper, then you need to know what type of questions and what topic they are going to specifically ask in that section. Then you should be able to have a quick summary of that specific topic, and then you can use that to answer your questions. So today we're going to look at the parabola, and whichever question pertains to the parabola, you should have your summary and then use that to answer your questions. When we talk about functions, any function, the most important thing that we need to know, or one of the most important things that we need to know, is that function's specific equation. And it is no different for the parabola. There's the equation, and then we need to know what each part means and what each part represents. The A, or the sign of A, determine if the parabola will have a maximum or minimum. If it is positive, the parabola will have a minimum and it will concave upwards. If it's a negative, the parabola will have a maximum and it will concave downwards. Or you can think of it like this: positive, smile; negative, sad, upside down. C is a place where a parabola cuts the y-axis. So C will be equal to 2 in this case. When I have that, C will be equal to -5. This is the standard formula for the parabola, but the parabola also has another way of writing the equation. And this we can also refer to as a turning point formula. Why? Because when we have it this way, then P and Q will be our turning point. But remember, the sign of P will change from positive to negative. If it's a negative here, then this will be positive, and Q will stay the same. So this will be my X value, and that will be my Y value. What we also need to know about these equations, you need to be able to go from one form to the other as well. And this, when we go from this form to this form, we normally complete the square, and we will have a separate video on that as well. So the equations, when we have the standard, A, or the sign of A, will determine the concavity of my parabola. C will be my y-cut. When we look at the turning point formula, or the turning point equation, then P and Q will be my turning point. This will be my X value, but it will be the opposite sign of that. And Q will be my Y value. Now that we have had a look at the equations, let's see what we need to know when it comes to the parabola. You should be able to determine the equation. You need to be able to sketch, find a point. You need to know how to write down the range and the domain, and then calculate for which values of X will be greater, equal, or smaller than when a specific question is asked. Okay, to sketch the parabola, the first thing you would need to know how to do is to find the X cuts. And this is where a parabola will cut your X axis. And the way we do it is we factorize our equation. So you would need to know how to factorize. You would know where to find the y-cut, and obviously, as we said, the y-cut you can simply read off your equation. In this case, it will be plus 6. Next, you would need to know how to determine your turning point. And when you have this formula, step number 1 would be to get your x-cuts. Next, you would use your x-cuts to determine your axis of symmetry. Now, when to get your x-cuts, obviously, factorize. Axis of symmetry, you can do two ways. When you have your two x values, you can use x2 plus x1 divided by 2 to get your axis of symmetry. Or negative b over 2a by substituting b and a directly from your equation. The third, or number 3 that you need when it comes to your turning point is to get your y value. Then to get your y value of your turning point, you substitute your x value, that would be the axis of symmetry, in the original equation. So to summarize, when we need to sketch, we need our x cuts and we factorize. We need a y-cut where your graph will cut your y-axis, and that will be C. The turning point, you can get your x-cuts. I'm specifically referring to this equation. You can get your x-cuts by factorizing. Then you can get your axis of symmetry by using this formula, or you can use this one, substitute it directly into your equation there, and when you have your x value or your axis of symmetry, and then you substitute it into that equation there to get your y value. Or for your turning point, when they give you this formula, you will use P and Q. The next thing we need to know how to do is to find a point. Now, when we need to find a point in any equation of any function, the point consists of the x value and the y value. If we have the x value, then we can substitute that together with all the other unknowns to find the y value. Or if we have the y value, we can substitute that together with all the other unknowns to find the x value. Example. When we have an equation, when we want to find the y value, then just substitute our x value. If we want to find the x value, then we substitute our y value. So you have to have either one point x value or the y value. I've already explained before, when we have two graphs, maybe a parabola and a straight line, then we can use simultaneous equations. But when it comes to the parabola and you only have the parabola, and then you need to have either an x value or a y value in order to find the other one. When it comes to our domain and our range, when our equation is positive, and then y will be an element of negative q and infinity, because our graph will look like that. Or when it is negative, and then we will have a maximum, so y will be an element of q to infinity. For our range, x will always be an element from negative infinity to positive infinity. So that's the summary, or the quick summary of the parabola. But remember, it doesn't just, or the questions doesn't just pertain to what I've spoken about now. This is just a baseline from where which we can work with to answer these questions. Although it is a very, very good baseline. Because if you understand this, you should be able to answer the questions. You have to understand the equations, both forms. You have to know how to sketch. And there we have our roots, our x values, our y cut, our turning point, which consists of an axis of symmetry and then its y value. You have to be able to find a point, and to do that you either have to have the x value or the y value to find the other one. Then you would know how to write down the domain or the range, and then we need to calculate for which values of x greater equal or smaller as when that question comes up. In the next videos, we are going to look further into how we can do this.